You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program where we kick off the week looking at the week that was and indeed still is on the crypto side of the fence. We're going to talk the options, the futures, the spot, the vol, the volume, the volatility, the open interest, all that good stuff, the SKEW, answer a whole bunch of your questions, and a lot more. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from this fine network upon which you are listening to this program and many others. Right now, we love seeing the influx of new listeners all the time to the crypto program. But if you haven't discovered the full network yet, you're missing out, especially in these troubled times. A lot of people have a lot of time on their hands, and they're also a little bit concerned about what's going on in the market. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you head on over to your podcast provider of choice. Could be iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. We don't judge. Make sure you subscribe to the full network, getting pretty much a dozen different programs to break down these markets and the options world and the volatility spectrum in some interesting ways. And, of course, however you listen, live, after the fact, on whatever device you listen, make sure you keep those questions, those comments, those insights coming. We do enjoy hearing from you guys. We're not just going to hear from me today on the show. We're also going to hear from a great guest. So let's get to it with a little bit of the old crypto hot seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the program where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto and indeed beyond, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And next up in the old hot seat, he's a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. He is James Putra, the head of product strategy over there for TradeStation Crypto. James, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program.
How you doing, Mark? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm pretty excited here to learn more about what you guys are doing with the options. I have to admit, I don't have as much experience in options as you do. I'm more a spot guy, but I'm super excited about digging into this topic with you.
Well, let's get into it a little bit. Let's start there. You mentioned your background, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the network. Why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background in the financial space, as well as what it is that you do as the head of product strategy over there day to day at TradeStation Crypto, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got started when I was 18 years old trading. It was something that my stepdad wanted me to get involved in really early on, and I fought him. You know, a teenager, you're like, this is silly. If my dad wants me to do it, it's probably not cool. I started dipping my toe in. I traded Best Buy, was the first stock I ever traded, and I made a bunch of money. And at that point, I was hooked. I spent most of my career in fintech. traded in some hedge funds, launched some hedge funds, did most of my fintech trading signal software early days. I spent the last 8 years in retail brokerage, really understanding what it means to do client-facing services for mass audiences. And recently I've been with TradeStation. I've probably been with them since 2012, actually, a long time now. And we really got kind of launched into doing a variety of different things. I ran the innovation lab there, and that kind of kicked us into being exposed to crypto. And that's where I really got my first taste in crypto, was dealing with the innovation lab. Again, like my first trade in Best Buy, I did a little bit of trading in Bitcoin, and I started making money, and I really got hooked there. For me, for a long time, I was trading FX markets, and then as it transitioned away, I started to trade equities markets. It just wasn't as exciting. 9 to 4, Monday through Friday was a little bit hard to swallow when you're used to trading 24 hours a day. Then I came into crypto, and I was like, wow, this asset class, this spot class moves just like currencies. I can trade on Saturdays and Sundays. I can trade all night long. Helps fuel the trading addiction. And that's really just how I got involved with crypto. And through TradeStation, we try to figure out how are we going to expand into this asset class. It's something that our overall firm was really interested in, offering this asset class out to the customers. And so we did a little bit of kind of dabbling to figure out how we would get involved. The firm started mining, I want to say, in 2015. And really the plan was to try to figure out how to hold on and deal with this asset class. So through the mining operation, we managed to develop a nice chunk of change. And through that chunk of change, we really made a lot of people in the organization pay attention, because once you put some extra zeros behind the assets that the technology firm has, finance, legal, operations, everybody wants to know what's going on. So we kind of taught the organization how to manage this asset class. And fast forward to now, we've had a crypto offering which launched in November. I think we've got something pretty interesting and pretty exciting. My job at TradeStation really is just to keep imagining the really cool stuff we can do with this asset class, talk to customers, figure out where the market's headed, and try to bring the tools that they need to be able to engage with this asset class.
That's fascinating. I always ask newcomers here on this program what their crypto inflection point was, what it is that brought them to the dark side. And it's interesting for you guys, it's more of a firm question. What brought TradeStation to the dark side of crypto? Because you guys are certainly all in right now. And I never expected it to be mining. That's kind of fascinating. But it makes total sense when you think about it, because you're right. To get buy-in internally, it certainly helps when you got a few zeros at the end of that budget. And back in those days, I think you said 2015, which was pretty early for a lot of the mainstream financial on the mining front. That certainly translated into a lot of zeros over there. James, you should be on your own private island right now. What are you doing talking to me, sir?
Well, I kind of feel like I'm on a private island with these, as I'm sheltered in place at the moment.
That's true.
But crypto's been really interesting for me. I've done really well myself, and it's just been something that's been such a cool experience to deal with, because I came from TradeStation Securities, which is a regulated brokerage firm, and really our goal when we launched TradeStation Crypto was try to find a way in. And because there's not a lot of patterns and pathways for us to follow, every single thing that we encountered was a new learning experience. And for someone like me that loves to learn, it was just cool. I mean, everything from what do you call this thing? What do the legal agreements look like? What is the company structured as? How do you take this firm and this asset class and navigate into it? From coming from that regulated background, really trying to bring that mindset to the cryptocurrency space. And I can tell you, when we first started getting involved, there were some really scary conversations we were having with different vendors and providers around how we could trade with them. I remember we had some conversations early on where some market makers or exchanges wanted us to trade with them via Skype. And we're like, guys, we can't make a customer offering where we're going to send orders to you through Skype. This is not going to fly. So there's a lot of learning, a lot of really interesting experiences as we kind of develop this. And we've had to forge a lot of new paths, and hopefully the work we put forward has really kind of helped pave the way for some new entrants to come in and follow our footsteps.
Oh, let's get to that, because you're right. That's kind of been a repeating theme on this program since we launched it a little over a year ago now, which is just kind of the interfacing of the crypto markets versus the traditional financial markets, and how things that fly in one space don't tend to fly in the others. Just look at the last couple of weeks. A lot of people were asking about should there be circuit breakers in the crypto space, and that flies in the face of a lot of people in the crypto space got mad at us for even talking about it. But, if you're coming to it from a traditional financial perspective, that's a logical question. Why aren't there circuit breakers when these things are flipping 30% intraday? Not something you see in S&P, for example. So there are a lot of pain points sometimes when these two different views on markets come together. But it's also fascinating, these worlds colliding and seeing what is created as a result. Things like TradeStation Crypto. Let's get into that. You mentioned kind of the TradeStation Securities, which is probably the mothership, the brand most folks are familiar with. Now you have, I guess what effectively you can term this spinoff, this subsidiary called TradeStation Crypto. But, walk us through how this works. Like, for example, if I'm a TradeStation client, am I automatically a client of TradeStation Crypto? Is there another process I have to go through to become a part of it? How do you two interact, the main mothership versus TradeStation Crypto? And also, what do you guys offer right now? If I go to TradeStation Crypto and sign up right now, what can I trade? Is it just Bitcoin? Is it a whole bunch more? Break it down for us.
Sure, not a problem. So if you're already a TradeStation securities customer and you have a TradeStation equities account, it's a relatively easy process for you to open up a crypto account. The prerequisite for any crypto account is that you have a TradeStation securities equities account. At that point, it's really one click. There's a couple of questions we're going to ask you, and then you will have your account open with TradeStation Crypto. And at that point, you've got these two accounts where you can, on one day, trade equities, futures, and options with TradeStation securities. And that same day, if you like, trade with crypto with TradeStation Crypto. So there's a sort of seamless interaction between those two accounts where me as a customer, I can make a deposit of cash with TradeStation securities, and I can use that cash to buy crypto, or I can use that cash to buy securities. So it's kind of a really good way and efficient way to use my funds, which is great because someone like me, if there's volatility in Tesla, for example, I want to jump over and trade Tesla. If there's volatility in Bitcoin, I want to be able to very quickly jump over and trade Bitcoin. It was always one of my biggest complaints when I was trading at some of the other exchanges was I had money parked in one place and I'd either have to move it to another exchange or another broker. And it was always just this kind of hurry up and wait game to move funds around. And so we decided to try to fix that and try to come up with this sort of bridge between traditional markets and crypto markets. At TradeStation Crypto, we're offering 5 different pairs. It's currently 7 markets. So you can trade Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, all against the dollar. And you can also trade 2 cross pairs, which are going to be Ethereum to Bitcoin and Litecoin to Bitcoin. So those are the 7 markets that we're supporting. We're very interested to grow those as we start to develop the business. But mainly, our whole focus was trying to create and pave a way that our existing customer base, as well as new customers, could enter the crypto space. But we're doing it through our overall umbrella brand, TradeStation, because it does have some meaning. We've been around 25, 30 years in the space, so we've been pretty well known as a brand for trading software under TradeStation Securities for the regulated broker-dealer, and under TradeStation Crypto now offering crypto assets. So with one firm and one brand, you're able to move across multiple asset classes and deal with somebody that has been around for a long time, since pre-crypto days. We've had a lot of success there and a lot of good feedback in the market, which is, hey, it's great to see you guys in the space because now we can start to get more and more maturity into the space. And our focus really sitting kind of in that intersection is we wanted to make that easy way in for that traditional market trader who wants to add crypto to their portfolio. But we also wanted to provide a better experience for the crypto traders that could come in with more of the tools that TradeStation is known for, as well as the ability to easily access those other asset classes without having to manage multiple accounts and multiple relationships. So it's kind of where we've been focused. And as TradeStation Crypto, we kind of took a cue from the primary brand, TradeStation Securities, and we wanted to approach the market similar to the way you would approach an equities market. As you know, most of the crypto markets are highly fragmented. So you've got liquidity at one exchange, maybe that's Coinbase, liquidity at Kraken, liquidity at Binance. And right now the customers are having to manage accounts at all these different venues, and they're having to juggle moving funds around in order to be able to trade in those different venues. And try telling that to an equities customer who, when they place buy on Apple, it doesn't matter where it gets executed, they get the best price across any of those venues. So that was one of the biggest challenges we had to solve, and we really wanted to focus on solving that piece, which was liquidity aggregation. And so we are bringing together a number of different liquidity venues and providing the customer with the best visible price across those venues. And we combine that with our smart order routing technology to allow the customer with one click execute the order wherever the best price in the ecosystem is.
Yeah, that's a pain point we hear from quite a few of our listeners these days. I'm glad you touched on it, because you're right. A lot of our audience, shall we say, very deep into the weeds on the active trading side, the options side. Of course, there's a whole bunch of new listeners all the time coming into a show like this who are just coming purely from the crypto side, so they don't really have that issue. They don't mind domiciling all their funds at, let's say, Coinbase, something like that. But for a lot of our audience that's on more of the bleeding edge of the trading side, you're right. They like to pick up some vol maybe in Tesla one day and then use that same account the next day to trade some vol in crypto. And it's difficult when you have to sling assets between various venues, and the experience on one very different from the other. The account transfer isn't seamless. If you wanted to jump in and get in on those moves, it's important to have all that in one place. And so the notion that you can have a regulated broker that people have actually heard of in the crypto space, I think probably goes a long way towards easing a lot of those concerns. Let's talk about a little bit what people are up to right now. We'll get to the price action in a little bit when we get to the Bitcoin breakdown, what's been going on out there in the crypto space. And spoiler alert, listeners, Bitcoin and crypto indeed are moving again this week. But we've had a lot of guests on of late talking about effectively what many of them have termed their great disappointment with Bitcoin in particular, because coming into this asset class, a lot of them were sold this bill of goods that Bitcoin and crypto indeed were these, if not inversely correlated, at the very least uncorrelated asset class. And yet we saw over the last couple of weeks that old adage coming true yet again, that when it all hits the fan, correlation tends to move to one. And we saw that in Bitcoin as well, selling off pretty much in lockstep with the markets, now rallying in lockstep with the markets. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, I should say, a lot of a disappointment to a lot of our audience who are looking at this as some sort of portfolio diversification tool. I'm curious, A, your thoughts on that, that viewpoint that Bitcoin was supposed to be this uncorrelated instrument, and then B, has that impacted what people are trading over there? And have you heard that from your clients as well? And if so, what is the hot thing? What are they trading right now over there in TradeStation Crypto, James?
Sure. So I love that term, the great disappointment. I've got to tell you, that's fantastic.
Feel free to license that. Our rates are very reasonable.
Awesome. I will definitely I'll have my lawyer's contact. The interesting thing with that statement is that we had a lot of hopes, right? I think there was this inception of Bitcoin, and it had a promise. And over the years, I think what came out 2008 and really started to develop 2009, there was a lot of promise for what this could be. And I think the hope and the anticipation and the belief of what all this crypto stuff could do significantly outpaced the reality of what the technology could do at the current moment. Maybe we get there eventually, but I think that there's a lot, like Bitcoin and crypto really is a religion, so it's very easy to get caught up in the Kool-Aid and really believe the kind of the echo chamber that happens within crypto of all these folks banging the drum about how this is going to be the savior, it's going to destroy the financial system. Maybe. I think for me, I kind of see this as something more as an augment or an add-on to the financial system versus a whole-scale replacement. But when you look at Bitcoin and crypto really born in 2008, that was at the height of the financial crisis. It was developed in really, let's say, juvenile and adolescent years through one of the largest bull markets in history, never really saw a down market. So to be able to make the claim that it is this anti-correlated asset, I think is very hard to do so because we've not seen this asset exposed to a horrific market sell-off like we saw recently. And I think that it also adds that a lot of the folks that are involved in crypto are definitely new traders. And this goes true to many of the traders that are out there today. Many of them have never seen a down market. So there's a lot of kind of learning that's happening across the trading population for people that are involved and got involved in crypto and are really starting to experience this. There is something to be said when you have these horrific market sell-offs. People move to their flight of safety, and this one was really rough, and people shot to the dollar as their primary safe haven in the investing world, at least in the U.S. And we were looking to see if this was going to have a positive impact for Bitcoin. But Bitcoin still, from that sell-off, appears to be a risk asset where people are still not yet ready to hide out inside of Bitcoin. Some people are still holding on, but as we saw this market sell off, a lot of people went to cash and are looking for bargain hunting. So will this eventually become a kind of a risk off asset? Maybe. I think it's still pretty new and it's still a very retail driven market. And retail traders are notoriously flighty. So as the markets move up and down, I would expect to still see increased volatility. What was the last question you asked me? I rambled on there. I apologize.
I was saying, what are they up to right now? What is the big thing? Is it still just Bitcoin dollar? What is the hot thing in TradeStation crypto right now?
Yeah, so I think we see, and it's just kind of standard across the industry, we see the majority of the volume and activity and interest happens in Bitcoin. It's I think for a lot of different reasons, it's the one that people know the most. So typically when you get started, that's the one you start with, and then you start to branch out. We've not listed a ton of different altcoins. We've really tried to stay focused in that top 10 or 20 most with the highest volume. So that's primarily where our action is at the moment. On the security side, they do see quite a bit of interest in the futures contracts. What we're watching is as the customers get more familiar with the spot and the futures and the options, we're trying to see kind of as an overall firm how much they take advantage of being able to trade all these asset classes together and do some of these more complicated trades. There's a big one happening out in the industry right now, the cash and carry arbitrage trade, where you would go long Bitcoin, short the futures. Interestingly, that just reversed. So now you can do that long Bitcoin, short the futures. After the sell-off, it was the opposite. You'd want to be long Bitcoin, short dollars. But recently that's come back into play. And so that's something you could do with us, for example. If you have a futures account and you have a TradeStation crypto account, you could do those types of complicated strategies more so than just buying the underlying asset.
Speaking of those different asset classes, obviously we hang our hats here on the options side of the fence, and we've been watching with great anticipation the launch of listed Bitcoin options. Obviously, there have been options on venues like Deribit and others for quite some time. Not all of those accessible to our predominantly U.S.-oriented audience here, but the onset of large listed venues like Backed under the umbrella of ICE and, of course, now CME most recently was an interesting one for us. It hasn't really translated into a lot of volume yet, which is, I think, somewhat head-scratching for a lot of our listeners out there. I'm curious what your take is on these new large, regulated, well-known entities in the financial markets, A, getting into the crypto option space, and B, what have you heard and or seen from your clientele anecdotally? Are they interested in these? Are they starting to trade these? What is the skinny on these venues and these options, pun intended, over there at TradeStation Crypto right now, Jason?
Yeah, so I would just be clear that we don't offer options on our TradeStation Crypto. That happens under our sister company, TradeStation Securities. It's something that we do have a lot of interest overall as a brand. The options product and the options on the futures and the futures product tend to be a little bit more sophisticated product. And as the crypto traders do become more experienced with spot trades, we anticipate that they will also migrate over into these other types of asset classes. I'm particularly excited about the options asset class. I think there's been a lot of interest in options in the U.S. from across most of the firms. It's just kind of a really interesting way to play the asset where you have a better use of capital. You don't have to put up as much cash to be able to make that trade. And what I'm really interested in is being able to see more short side of the trades. So people that don't have to just go long like you do in the spot, just trying to keep an eye to the open interest on the short side and really see if we can kind of find some normal balance and dampen some of the volatility in the market, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So you can trade the spot, obviously, with you guys. If you want to trade the options, it still has to be with the TradeStation Securities parent. And what about the futures? Is that same thing, TradeStation Securities, or can you trade the futures with you guys?
Same thing, TradeStation Securities.
Interesting.
All that happens in the securities broker dealer. So all those assets that come up are really like super interesting, and they fit right into that existing operating model of the broker dealer. So that's why they tend to be housed there. We'd love to house the crypto entity underneath the broker dealer. That's a whole different discussion we can go down. It's just keep everybody's life much more simple. There's definitely some more clarity that has to happen regarding the rules and sort of how all this is being viewed before that can happen.
Unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast right now in the crypto market space. And it's the nature of the beast of this show that we have to keep on rolling right on into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trading activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the program where we break down what the heck has been going on over the past week in the world's leading digital asset, aka Bitcoin, and another week, another interesting case for the bulls out there. Coming into showtime, we're seeing Bitcoin continuing to roll north here, well north of that 7,200 level. That puts it up actually about a little over 900 handles now as this rally. It was exactly 7,200 coming into showtime, listeners, and now that rally has continued all the way up to 7,277 out there. So nearly, 900 and so handles from last show, which again, giving a little bit of steam out there to the bulls. In fact, folks like Forbes and others coming out saying Bitcoin is on fire, to use their technical terms, up over 6% just in the last 24 hours, up 12% over the course of the past week. So again, all of you who've been writing in, wringing your hands, the Bitcoin bulls out there saying, what's been going on the last couple of weeks has been an interesting changing of the narrative out there. I'm curious, Jason, how much of this, we just talked about the correlation out there, how much of this recent correlation to the upside with the equity markets, how much is this driving business over there at TradeStation Crypto now that we're back north of the 7,000 level again? Is this getting people to maybe start dipping their toes in the waters? What are you seeing from an overall volume perspective? And also, what are your thoughts on this continued rally over the past week out here in Bitcoin, sir?
Overall, we're pretty excited. So this recent move has been pretty interesting for us. What tends to happen, at least in our overall firm, is that the more volatile, the more people get excited and want to trade. As the markets have sold off, people get super excited to go bargain hunting, and they're really looking for those good deals. And we saw the same thing in both the crypto side as well as the security side, that people were getting involved and trying to pick some of those nice firms that were on sale. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I mean, we see that in the broad option space, obviously, as well. Volatility tends to correlate to more volume. A little bit higher volatility tends to translate into a little bit higher volume. Of course, volatility, like anything, too much of a good thing can be a little bit too much. We saw that recently when we saw things like the VIX skyrocketing north of 80. All of a sudden, that got to be a little bit too much for a lot of people out there. And Bitcoin, maybe some of the recent vol levels could have hit that level as well, coming off that a little bit now, even though we're staying still pretty frothy. In fact, let's get to that a little bit now. Of course, all these analytics and the vol and the volatility, all that good stuff coming to you courtesy of our friends over there in SKEW land. Check them out, SKEW.com, if you'd like to kick the tires for yourself. Let's get out to the realized, 1 month realized out there right now. Of course, realized vol, listeners, is the volatility that has actually been exhibited out there in the Bitcoin market. It's actually been moving quite a bit over the course of the past week, so it's managed to maintain its currently astronomical level of realized volatility, 200%, pretty much unched. I think it was 199 last week's show, so pretty much hovering at 200%. And you may say, the vol is unchanged, but it takes a lot of movement to maintain that level, including over 1,000 or close to 1,000 points over the course of the past week. So yeah, it merits a 200% realized vol. You're not seeing that in many other asset classes right now. The 1 year, let's go back a little bit farther. The 1 year realized vol, how much vol Bitcoin has actually exhibited over the course of the past year, also extremely elevated, about 89%. Again, you're not going to see a lot of asset classes that have that long-term level of realized volatility. Let's get out to the implied vol, what the options market out there is actually pricing in from an overall level of volatility, and that's down a little bit. That's down to actually 89%. From 99%. Part of that is, of course, we've been rallying firmly, but maybe not as shockingly intraday. We're not seeing those 30% intraday swings anymore. So some of that vol had to come off a little bit in there. We're seeing that a little bit out there in the overall crypto markets as a result. But still, 89%, nothing to sneeze at out there. Options volume out there, another interesting and different story out there. Let's look at the number one platform out there for the options. Look at that, Deribit. The volume overall pretty steady from where it was this time last week. Again, it wasn't lighting it up last week, not lighting it up this week either. In fact, the most active day is today, or close to it. We're at about 43 million coming into showtime. I'm sure it's a little bit higher now. The most active day was actually the second with 54 million, and the third with about 41 million out there. So that average still all north of that 30 million barometer we used to use, even though that barometer has ticked up a little bit. Looking at the charts out here, the volume has remained pretty much steady over the last couple of weeks. We're well away from the close to 300 million notional we had going up there in early to mid-March on one day out there. Not quite there right now, but still pretty hefty, all north of that 30 million barometer we used for quite some time. If you're curious what the biggest print was out there on Deribit over the past week, it was on April Fool's Day. People like their April Fool's crypto trades. Go figure. It was the May 5,000 puts going up on April Fool's Day 500 times. That was the biggest print out here. Again, on April 1st, that was done when Bitcoin was at not quite $6,200, $6,193. They got it off for 0.075 Bitcoin for all of you who love your trades out there in fractional Bitcoin. If you're interested, that equates to an implied volatility of about 106%. So pretty volatile out there, well north of that 89% we were just talking about. They also saw 300 lot of the April 8,000 calls going up on the 2nd. That was for when Bitcoin was 68.05. It looks like they got those off for 0.009 Bitcoin. Again, we don't have the sides on these, so we have to kind of just interpret a little bit, read the tea leaves out there. And also a 200 lot of the April 5,500 puts. That was on March 30th out there. They went up for 0.0475 Bitcoin. Bitcoin is right about 6,500, a little bit close, a little bit shy of that. Big trades today are the April 7,000 calls, a whopping 245 of them going up. So not a ton of paper going up out there today. Also, these April 72 half calls. So not surprising. We're north of that level right now out there, just about in Bitcoin right now. So not surprising that those at the money and near out of the money calls would be what is lighting it up out there. SKEW down a bit, down from 12% down to 5.2%. That reflects that rally we've seen of late. So obviously going to see more interest in the calls as we're rally ho over the course of the past week and indeed over the course of the past 24 hours. Not surprising to see the puts coming off a little bit, and that's what that number indicates. The call to put ratio, again, also reflecting a similar sentiment out there, up from 42%. Now it's 55%. So calls back in charge, leading the dance, which is the way the SKEW normally shapes up out there. Calls used to be the big driver out there, and then obviously we had a little bit of flux, a little bit of flummox, a little bit of volatility. Puts started creeping in there. Now calls getting back up out there. The open interest also kind of a similar story from last show. Right now we're seeing Deribit still the number one venue at about 450 million contracts. That the peak they've seen out there, 450 million notional, not contracts, 450 notional out there. The peak was about 800 million going back a little bit now, back to early to mid-March. So not quite at that level, about half of it out there. Number two is actually it's back and forth battle with LedgerX and OKEX, seeing more fisticuffs going on. LedgerX swinging back into the second place spot here with 30 million notional, and just right behind them, OKEX with about 29 million. Then you got CME and backed, bringing up the rear. CME at about nearly 6 million notional, 5.9 million, and backed at a whopping 47,000 out there. You guys have some questions about that. We'll get to those a little bit later in your crypto questions segment. Same deal, looking across the months here, what the big open interest month is across all the different venues, Deribit, LedgerX, etc. It's out there to the end of June. You guys like your end of quarter contracts out here in crypto. March was the number one month. That went off the board, obviously. So now we're seeing a lot of that paper rolling out to June. Similar numbers as well, about 27,800 contracts open in that June contract. Next largest is the April contract expiring on the 24th. That has 19,600, then it kind of falls off from there. Moving on out to CME, like I said, not a lot of paper out there on the CME Bitcoin options. The biggest day we've seen over the past week was, again, April Fool's Day. April Fool's, big for crypto options. Go figure. With about 381,000 worth of notional going up again. It's not a big, but it's the biggest we've seen out there in CME. The rest of the week was far below that. You got to go back to those heady days of like March 9th or so to see north of 2 million worth of notional trading out there. Similar story on the Bitcoin futures front at CME, with maybe a little bit less volume on certain days, and then other days a little bit better. We're seeing today a decent volume day, for example, about 10,500 contracts. We also saw a similar level, about 10,300 on the second. Every other day was pretty anemic, quite frankly, shy of 3,000 contracts, around 2,300 or so. So again, you have these sparks of volume out there on the futures, then they kind of quiet down a little bit again. This is something people have been talking about for a while there on the Bitcoin futures front. What does that mean? OI staying strong, volume kind of getting light. Maybe that translates in people kind of buying and holding or holding on to what positions they have. Either way, not exactly blowing the doors off from a volume perspective on the Bitcoin futures front. Of course, that looks positively enormous compared to what we're seeing out there in Backed. Again, check out our friend, the old Backed volume bot, if you want to see for yourself. A total volume on Backed over the past week. Again, this is for their monthly futures. Was 43 million. That's down about 3%. That's notional, of course. The max open interest is 6.4 million. That's actually up 50%. So their open interest actually growing. Granted, it's from a smaller baseline, but still, open interest up 50% from this time last week. So interesting stuff. I know you said, James, earlier that we're looking at having to do different companies, effectively, different entities to trade the futures and the options versus TradeStation crypto. But I'm curious, like I said, we're not seeing huge numbers out there, but have you heard a lot of feedback, maybe from just in this past week or so, as we've seen this big move to the upside? We're seeing some volatility out there. We're seeing some interesting changes in the SKEW, interesting changes in the open interest. Has this caused any correlating interest from your clients to want to start trading over there, the mothership and the futures and the options, or are they still kind of playing wait and see over there?
I think overall still a little bit more wait and see. We do have a number of adventurous customers that are definitely enjoying this asset class, but definitely there's room for us to grow into the space.
There's also room for us to grow into our next segment. It is time to expand into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, where we dive beyond Bitcoin to see what's trading in the other digital assets out there, lighting it up out there. I'm curious, James, before we even get into this, you mentioned you guys trade a variety of different coins over there. Obviously, ETH is clearly number two for most. Is ETH the number two product for you guys as well, or are there other interesting pockets of altcoin liquidity you're seeing popping up on your platform these days?
So we tend to, it kind of migrates around. So Bitcoin definitely dominates. We'll have times when ETH is cranking away. We also see a lot of interest in XRP. They kind of migrates around. So we have a subset of customers that are jumping through these various altcoins pretty actively. Overall, that's kind of the main area, but I would say it switches between ETH, Bitcoin Cash, and Ripple are the three that we would see customers bounce between.
Makes sense. Lines up with the broad market. Let's see what lines up with the overall market cap out here, listeners. Let's break down the top 10. Remember, take these top 10 market caps with a bit of a grain of salt. Overall market caps may be a little bit dubious, but the rankings, I think, have some merit. Number one, of course, Bitcoin right now at about 131 billion out there. Number two, ETH. A little bit north of 18 now, 18.1 or so billion. Number three, our old friend XRP, aka Ripple, at about almost 8.5 billion. Number four, Tether, about 6.3 billion. Number five, Bitcoin Cash, 4.6. Then we drop off a little bit. Bitcoin SV, number six, at about 3.5 billion. Number seven, Litecoin. Once the mighty, easily top five are now at number seven, 2.8 billion. Number eight, EOS at about 2.5 billion. Number nine, Binance Coin, 2.3. And round out the top 10, Tezos, again, 1.3 or so. Relatively stable, the top 10 this week. Not a lot of flux going on out there. Let's move on out to ETH. Like we said, this is a number two, I should say, for a lot of the platforms out there. Clearly number two overall from a options perspective as well. And we've seen a decent pop out here in ETH over the course of the past week as well. Kind of that Bitcoin rising tide lifts all boats. Seeing that playing out there in ETH right now, up about 32.3 handles from where it was this time last show. We were right about 132 last show, and coming into this show, we were at about 164 and a quarter or so. So a decent pop out here for ETH. Let's break down some of the options, the volatility out there. Again, coming to you courtesy of our friends over there in SKEW land. 30-day realized kind of staying unched, right around 244%. Similar story to what we saw in Bitcoin. There's enough movement out there to merit that level of realized volatility. The implied down a little bit. Again, a similar story to what we saw in Bitcoin as well. It was 115% this week. It's down to a mere 102%. So still obviously very volatile out there. The ADV also ticking down a little bit, down to about 2.8 million from about 3 million out there. We saw it spike over 5 not too long ago, so the volume coming in a little bit out there in ETH as well. Today, again, similar story to the Bitcoin options. Today, one of the busier days we've seen over the course of the past week, closing in on that ADV. It was at about 2.7 million notional coming into Showtime, so they probably hit that 3 million number by now. The SKEW down quite a bit as well. It was 7.8%, showing the puts were leading the dance last week. This week, down to about 2.3%. So the calls coming back on the radar, as you might imagine, when we're rallying, about 30-odd handles from this point last week. Open interest out here, it's at about 36 million. That's a little bit north of the average, which is about 23 million. Not quite half of the overall max. They saw about 52 million out there, which wasn't that long ago. It was back in mid-March. Then again, a lot of that March came off the board when the March contract went away, and they have yet to replace that OI in the Bitcoin options and certainly out here in the ETH options as well. Moving on to Ripple. Ripple feeling a little bit of the love out there. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about, will XRP break 10 cents to the downside? Now it's up another 2 cents again this week, threatening 20 cents to the upside, about 19 and a half or so out there. So again, for all you XRP bulls out there, and we hear you, we know you're out there, then you're not as worried, not as much hand-wringing, you're going to break 10 cents in the wrong direction this way. Bitcoin Cash also moving pretty heavily, up about 31 handles from last show, and bring up the rear there, at least of that top 5 names. Bitcoin SV up not quite 27 handles from this time last show. Okay, you guys have a lot of questions. Let's see how many we can squeeze on as we head on into the crypto questions segment.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Questions. This is a portion of the show where we break down what the heck is on your brains. And you guys have a lot of crazy questions. Keep them coming. We love to hear from you. You pull us in all sorts of interesting directions like E. Just the single letter name of E is very mysterious out there. I like that. Or perhaps she. We don't know. E wants to know, while I'm at home during this quarantine, what are your thoughts about me day trading crypto? Futures, should I go for the futures, the options, or just plain spot? Well, a lot to unpack there. First off, you haven't told us about your outlook, your viewpoints. You haven't told us about, most importantly, your level of expertise in the markets, not just in crypto, but indeed you're talking about futures and options. Do you have any baseline knowledge of the futures or options market? I'd probably want to start there before I recommend you dive into those markets. Just lacking that information alone, I'm going to say you stick with spot. I think that's something you can easily wrap your head around. And also, coincidentally, something, James, he could trade on your platform. I'm curious, you probably get questions like this quite a bit right now. What do you have to say for E and perhaps any of the other listeners who are floating around out there who've got a little bit of time on their hands? Maybe they're sitting on a little bit of cash, and maybe they want to start nibbling at these crypto levels. What do you have to say for them out there right now, James?
Yeah, I think you summed it up probably really well. You got to understand what this thing is you're trading, whether that's spot, futures, or options. You really need to know exactly what it is you're getting involved in, and does it match your risk tolerance. I think for me, if I look at it, I'm sitting at home. I like the spot because I can trade it Saturdays, Sundays, nights, and weekends. It fuels me. So that's definitely where my passion is. But if for E, wherever your risk tolerance is and whatever instrument you understand the best, that's where you got to start, man, or women.
Yeah, can't assume these days there, James. But yeah, you got to give us a little more info, and then we could walk you through what is going on out there. All right, next up here, Victor. Victor wants to know a whole bunch of questions in one question here. But usually like to limit you to one, Victor. We'll be generous today. Let you have a bunch of them. Are the multipliers the same for crypto options? So if I sell one put, do I get 100 coins? What about the contract specs? Do they allow early exercise? Also, do they work the same? For example, if I sell a put short, can I use that to get into a long Bitcoin position, or are they cash settled? Intrigued, but so much confusion at my end. Oh, well, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of different answers here, Victor, and everyone else who has similar questions. It kind of depends on the venue that you're going to. I mean, that's one of the things I've kind of bemoaned about the crypto space out there, is that anyone can pretty much go out there and call themselves an exchange. The actual amount of regulation on that front is pretty loose. Most of them are effectively de facto brokers, but they're operating as exchanges as well. They're providing products and pools of liquidity as well. So the lines are very blurred out there when it comes to what's going on out there in the crypto space. On the more traditional listed space, like a CME and others, their contract specs are pretty well defined, and they're not operating as a broker. They're just an exchange out there. So, of course, one of the issues we've seen hasn't really seemed to impact the Bitcoin futures out there, and of course the options on those futures. That's a 5-coin multiplier out there. So nothing's going to be 100 that I'm aware, unless you have some funky OTC kind of flex thing going on out there. 100 coins is a lot, Victor. So you're not going to see your traditional multiplier of 100 that you see in traditional equity options. Let's say, for example, one option on one contract of Apple is going to translate to 100 shares. Same thing with your SPYs and others. Not going to see that in Bitcoin. It's a very expensive underlying. Let's go out to some of the other venues that are popular, like Deribit. They are, of course, you also ask about the exercise style, cash settled. So Deribit's going to have European style. So that means, listeners who aren't familiar with that, you can't exercise your options at any time. They can only be exercised effectively at the end of that contract's life. So a little bit of a different option, quote unquote, pun intended, from American style, which gives you the option to exercise that at any time. They're also cash settled. So that's something else to pay attention to. You're talking about looking at Deribit out there. So again, this question varies depending on the venue. I'm curious, James, if you have any thoughts on this. I know you guys don't deal as much with the futures and options. That's more of the parent company. If you have any thoughts on this, A. And then B, I'd like to get your thoughts. We didn't have a chance to chat on it earlier in the crypto hot seat, but this is kind of a hot button issue in the crypto space. I'm curious of your thoughts of brokers out there, which is effectively what Coinbase and others are, effectively acting as exchanges and vice versa. What your thoughts are as a broker, and was this an avenue you guys thought about exploring with TradeStation Crypto? Did you guys think about creating the whole quote-unquote exchange moniker? And if not, why didn't you?
Yeah, so I think I'll first start with the question from Victor, if you don't mind. I would say that the point about the 100 coins, we used to see that in FX, and kind of know FX got pushed away because it was just so Wild West. What you see when you do trade these CME products, if you do go short, there will be cash put into your brokerage account. It's not clear that you can exactly use that exact cash, but if you have a margin account, you are able to use your buying power to withdraw cash from that equities account. So you can trade these strategies. I guess kind of in a nutshell, I'm jumping around here, but in a nutshell, if you go short options in your equities account, you can be long Bitcoin in your crypto spot account. That's one of the benefits of working with someone like TradeStation, where you have both of those asset classes underneath one brand. And in this example, there's a shared buying power that you can use where to trade the options in the equity and to trade the spot in the crypto account. Going back to your latter question, early on in crypto, there weren't a lot of choices for customers to engage in the space. So the firms that came out like a Coinbase, they had to do it all. They had to be the broker, the custodian, the clearinghouse, all wrapped up into one, and the exchange. And I think a lot of people got confused because these were firms that presented themselves out to the world like really traditional financial services companies, and it didn't come along with the same type of like operating expertise and the same type of say insurances and regulation. And so when we looked at the space, we looked at it and said, we've always been a broker underneath our brand. We don't really want to be a custodian. We don't really want to be the exchange. We want to be able to sit in between all of the exchanges and pull liquidity from all the venues we can connect to, and really give our customers a better experience of way to view the entire market. And that really came to us as we were engaging the various traders and hedge funds that are in the space, and they kept complaining to us that they're basically building an order management system to manage all their different venues. And if you think about it, if you're a hedge fund, or even an individual, you have to open up an account and park assets at each one of the venues you want to trade at, just to be able to trade across those multiple venues. And given that the list gets pretty short pretty quick of kind of who's been around for a long time in crypto, it starts to get scary when you want to place your assets all around. So we looked at that as a challenge for us, because we also didn't want to park assets anywhere and have our assets spread across multiple venues. So we said we got to solve this for ourselves, and as we solve this for ourselves, we'll expand that out to our customers. And that's sort of how we landed on being a fully disclosed crypto broker, and really trying to differentiate ourselves as we are just the broker. We specialize in customer relationships. Our whole focus is around customer service and marketing. We're going to bring the markets to the customers. We're going to provide them whatever prices we see out there, the prices that they're going to get. We'll manage all the back end to make sure that the customers don't need to maintain accounts at all these different venues, and we'll allow them to easily trade across all of them. And in doing that, we kind of unlocked the customer we freed the customer from being stuck at any one exchange. And I can tell you, I love it. I'm able to, for my trading, there's a lot of different arb opportunities that I can take advantage of just through the spot markets we have. But that's really where we found a kind of our bread and butter, is being that the spot broker. We're going to see, we think there's going to be a lot more consolidation happening in the space, as we had a whole massive expansion of crypto firms. And now as the kind of market consolidates, you're going to start to see a lot of these firms moving together. We saw providers, a whole bunch of different brokers that are popping up, and that's going to start to consolidate together as more rules come into place. As the business starts to spread around. So we're looking for what this is going to look like in the next year, as these different firms start to look more like traditional financial services. And I think you can see even Coinbase, they're starting to make changes there, where they've spun out their own licensed custodian, which is separate than their brokerage firm. And more of those kind of fundamental pieces of a financial services company are going to start to become specialty firms versus all-in-one firms, is what we think.
That does seem to be the way, as the crypto market grows up, becomes a big boy market. More of these things we traditionally associate with old school financial services going to become the norm out there in that space. Yep, perhaps circuit breakers. You guys are clearly dead set on that one. All right, we got time for a couple more here. You guys obviously have a lot of questions these days. You love making sure we get a bunch of you on the show here. Let's go on with Ellie. Ellie5 wants to know, what is going on with Backed Crypto? They launched to a lot of fanfare and have raised hundreds of millions. It seemed like everyone was into the physically settled contracts, but that hasn't translated into volume. Yeah, Ellie, that's a question I've asked week after week on this program. We've reached out to them. We've had just about every other venue on the planet on this program. We've reached out to them. They haven't wanted to come on for a variety of reasons. I think their former CEO has other things to concern herself with right now in the Senate. But of course, they just raised a bunch of money, so they clearly are keeping this platform going and planning to invest in it in the long term. So I would be curious to hear what their plans are for it, what they're looking to do to help drive this volume. They obviously beat CME to the punch listing their options, but it hasn't translated into a lot of action yet. But there are big players there behind that platform, not just ICE, Microsoft. I think Starbucks is involved as an investor and others. So a lot of big players out there who have a vested interest in seeing this platform get some volume. And we just love to see all the platforms do a lot of volume, because that, of course, translates into a lot of interest and a lot of options, pun intended, for you guys out there to trade, and also for us to discuss and analyze on a program like this. So, yeah, we'd be happy to see a lot of volume out there. And for whatever reason, it hasn't materialized. We're hoping to get down to that. Maybe we'll bring on their new CEO and try to get some insight into that for you here live on the program. I'm curious there, James, have you guys had any thoughts or discussions internally, or do you have any thoughts yourself on what's, as Ellie puts it, what's going on with Backed Crypto, sir?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is Backed really is meant to be the custodian for the ICE contracts, to be able to do physically settled ICE contracts. One of the things I would kind of point out, though, is that they have a great way to surface these products through the retail brokers, as they can surface the ICE contracts to us. However, almost all the firms that a retail trader can trade with have done a lot of work over the years to prevent physical settlement. And that's because people make mistakes, and the last thing we need is a herd of cattle being delivered to our parking lot or to a customer's parking lot, and them taking physical delivery. So almost all the contracts now, if they're not cash settled on the exchange at the brokerage houses, they are converted into cash to be settled before the contract expires. So it will take, in order for this to be really adopted from a retail audience, it's going to take all of us unwinding that work to prevent physical settlement. And there's a lot of challenges with physical settlement for regulated brokers. So we need to get some more clarity around how we're going to hold on to these assets, how we're going to put these assets into a customer's account. I mean, just one thing to note, if a customer has a Bitcoin holding and it's underneath a regulated broker-dealer, the broker-dealer must hold an equal amount of cash on their books to offset that position, which is a lot different than if a customer holds a share of Apple. The broker does not need to hold an equal amount of cash to offset that share of Apple. So until those rules can be more clarified for the regulated broker-dealers, it's going to be a lot harder for retail brokers to allow physical settlement.
That's why we like having you guys on to bring that broker-dealer perspective here, because, for a while there, certainly towards the end of last year, we saw that race to launch physically settled contracts. LedgerX backed, others were racing each other to get these contracts out the door. The mantra that we heard over and over again was the lack of physically settled contracts was the major impediment to keeping a lot of these institutional players from playing in the crypto space. It sounds like that's not the case there, James. You think it's actually the opposite, that physically settled could be more of a hassle than the traditional cash settle everybody's using now, James?
Yeah, I think, you're physically settled is definitely for a smaller audience. It's going to be for more select institutions. It's not yet ready for exposure to the retail side. And if you really want to get adoption, you're going to need to be able to unlock that investment capital that sits at most of the retail brokerage firms.
All right, let's keep rolling. We can squeeze a couple more on. This next question's right up your alley here, James. You're lucky you're on this week. You get a good one. This comes from JJLC. He or she asking, which of the major brokers do you feel has the best crypto presence? Well, we'll say right now we are talking to TradeStation Crypto on the program live. They're one of the only major brokers out there to actually have a dedicated crypto subsidiary, if you will. We kind of just talked about it. Check out the beginning of the show if you missed it, if you'd like to hear more. So, James, like I said, you have the good fortune to be on when this question came in. So I'll give you a chance to do your little plug now here for JJLC and for everybody else out there. What is it you really feel sets TradeStation Crypto apart from the offerings on the other major, quote-unquote, traditional broker-dealers out there?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing about traditional broker-dealers is we're in the game. I think we are one of two that are actually out there providing crypto services. To this question, which one is the best? I can't tell you which one's the best. I can tell you my favorite is definitely TradeStation Crypto, but I'm biased for sure. What we're doing is we're allowing you to be able to seamlessly trade between your equities account and your crypto account. We do offer a variety of different assets. We are a market aggregation tool, so you get to access liquidity from multiple different venues. It's all done under the trusted, familiar brand of TradeStation. We do value your question, and we'd love a chance to earn your business. Please check us out at www.tradestationcrypto.com. We've got a ton of resources, a lot of explanation about what we're doing, and we're just really excited about growing the space. It's a good area of growth for our business.
Yeah, we'll say there's a reason you guys are on the program with us this week, so check them out over there. Of course, other players do play in this. We would have also told you in the past maybe to check out TD Ameritrade. They were early players. They were very invested in the space. Quite literally, they were early investors in venues like ErisX. They were very vocal on the crypto space. Of course, now that Schwab-TD merger kind of puts that up in the air because Schwab not exactly as committed to the crypto space as TD has been, so it makes us a little more leery to recommend looking at their platform when we don't know the future of A, that deal, and B, how that's going to impact a lot of their crypto initiatives. Other places where you could trade the futures, Interactive Brokers has the futures available as well. So you can get the futures at a lot of the major brokers where you can trade futures accounts, obviously. Not going to get the options and a lot of the other offerings over there, and of course not going to get a broad array of altcoin really either, which is why TradeStation Crypto is a unique one, not the least of which the fact that it's actually its own subsidiary crypto brand. It shows they have a little bit of skin in the crypto game. All right, we'll take it home with this one from, I just like this handle, Big Size. Big Size says, thanks for the crypto rundown. I tune in religiously every week for my fix. Why is no one else out there talking about crypto derivatives? Well, thank you for that love, Big Size, and everyone else who wrote in with similar comments. We love you all out there. Hope you're all staying safe and enjoying this program, learning a bit from it. And I don't know the answer to the latter portion of your question there, Big Size. That's why we launched this show. You're right. No one was out there, and still really no one else is out there talking about the derivatives side. You can get the spot parsed a lot of different ways. When it comes to the actual derivatives component, which is where we hang our hat, not a lot of folks out there playing in that game. So we're happy to do it for you every week. Glad you guys are enjoying it. Keep listening. If you haven't done so already, make sure you head on out there and you subscribe to the rest of the network, because you got a lot of great content there for you, not just the Crypto Rundown every Monday. All right, unfortunately, that music means we've come to the end of another epic journey through the world of crypto. Glad you guys are enjoying it, like Big Size and everybody else out there. Keep those questions, those comments coming. We love to hear from you guys. James, you kind of had your chance to do your little plug earlier with that well-timed question from JJLC. But that said, if folks are intrigued, they want to check out TradeStation Crypto, learn a little bit more about your platform, and maybe you want to leave them with an additional hint, an additional tease of what's coming down the pike from you guys. Now is the time, James. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'll keep it brief. Check us out, www.tradestationcrypto.com. We'd love to earn your business. There are a lot of features dropping in this month. Expect to see deposit withdrawals, a mobile-friendly version. And then become summertime, there's something really interesting we have up our sleeve that I can't quite tell you about yet, but it's going to be a very interesting way for you to monetize your holdings at the firm. So we're really excited. Please check us out. We'd love you to give us a shot and a chance to earn your trust. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks for listening. Thank you very much.
There you go. Check them out, TradeStation Crypto, to learn more. And on behalf of James and myself, I want to thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for sending in those questions. Keep them coming. And, of course, we'll see you back here throughout the rest of the week. There's more shows on the network than just Crypto Rundown, listeners. Of course, we just had the option block hitting earlier. We've got TWIFO. We got option block again later on in the week. Spoiler alert, maybe some TradeStation folks on that show as well. Volatility views at the end of the week. We got OPR in the middle of the week. Interviews hitting. We have a lot of great content. We know you guys are stuck at home and really need a lot of great market and volatility content right now. We got a bunch of it coming at you. So if you're not subscribed to our network yet, what are you waiting for? It's been around 13 years. Get on out, subscribe to it on your platform of choice. We will keep you busy. We will keep you full of your options and derivatives and indeed your volatility, and in this case, your crypto-oriented content. And we'll see you back here throughout the week for all those great shows, and then back here again next Monday for more of the Crypto Rundown.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.